If I can change, then you can change. Everybody can change.
Here's the tale of the greatest to ever fight. From Philly streets to this F3's morning light. F3 Nation rises like Rocky, giving all our might. 530 sweat, pushing hard as if we're SLY. Apollo Creed, Rocky Balboa's best friend. Always there like F3 lifting men to the end. Clubber gave us prediction and it's pain, but Pac's grinding through. No matter the weight, Apollo's heart, no towel. They turn to this fight, Tommy's betrayal. F3's family for life. Whatever he hits, he destroys. Drago's manager shouts, but we F3, they better recognize we shouting this anthem out. If I can change, and you can change. Every man can change. So let's break the chains. From the grass to the peaks, we yell Drago's name. Rocky's fire is F3's way. Yeah, we all can change.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Welcome back to the Circuit Trust Podcast. My name's Huckleberry. Huckleberry, John D was 49 Huckleberry, coming to you from Boise, Idaho. It is, technically it's Thursday, but I want to tell you it's Friday. Friday, October 24th. We're going to come and push you out this early this morning. I've got the Whetstone going out this morning. I hope you're checking that out. I have not checked that out yet. Amazing conversations between Dread and Dark Helmet and the Plague. I think the Cadence Boys just pushed out another one. Love hearing those guys. I just learned the Gobbler Challenge isn't going to work well in England because the Gobbler is a weird term. It means, I don't even know if I'm going to say it, twit. You're a twit. And evidently the British folk don't use that word or something. We're having some language issues. It's kind of interesting learning that, but I don't think they'll do the Gobbler Challenge because they think that word's funny. And they'll probably tell me I need to beep that word if they're going to listen to it over there. Scratch. And Scratch got that Accelerate campaign going on. I got my Accelerate shirt on. Amazing. Tons of fun. I got my Accelerate bling back here. Got some patches to give out for the guys. But I want to bring up a point real quick about if you're listening to Scratch or Dark Helmet talk for just a second, it's almost like they have to make an excuse for why a free workout is raising money. And they tell me I'm not allowed to talk about it because I get frustrated with it. I run a nonprofit for kids. And once a year, this conversation comes up. This coach will come up and she say, "Hey, I want to soul kids at my school." I'm like, sure, that sounds good. Let's do this. And we start to go set them up. And they're like, well, I don't want to charge them $95. And comparable programs are almost double that. And we think we keep the prices low. And she says, well, I can get a t-shirt and something for about $20, $35. And I was like, I agree. You can do that. But I have no intention of running a program at a school. I have every intention of taking over this entire community and making every single youth kid around here have the opportunity to run. And that takes a lot more administrative costs. It takes a lot more, for example, the lady that's running a program at her school. Do you have insurance? Do you have a bank account? Do you have an LLC? And the answer is she doesn't. And those where the costs come from. And I get real frustrated with that. I get that you want to do this for your kid, but once you leave, it's gone. It doesn't come back. What we implement is sustainable. And it is going to carry on for a long time. And hopefully kids have the opportunity to run for many, many years. We want to get them active. And so it's a different conversation when you come at it and you have such a narrow focus on one specific place versus we want to take over the whole world. It's a different conversation. And sometimes the two parties are starting to talk each other and that conversation doesn't work real well. And I'll just leave that with there. Got to interview Dr. Risman out of Denver. Certainly still thinking about the boys over in Utah and Jacksonville for the Pinto passing. Got to interview Mervin in his book Cheerleader. Definitely picked mine up. One thing I love about it, super easy read. I need a book that's just an easy read. That's where my brain works. Sometimes other books get too complicated. They use words I don't know and slows me down. This one's real good, real motivating, and so far it's been really inspirational and loving it. But today, finally, after I stop talking, if you're just here for the news of the nation, you are going to miss out today because we got the coolest kid that we could find in F3, probably the most famous kid a couple weeks ago. Probably still is, to be honest with you. Bambi is in here. Bambi coming out of, I'm going to say Space City because it's Houston, Texas. Is that right? Space City? That's right. All right, Bambi, I do a terrible job introducing people, rather. So you want to introduce yourself, tell us, and maybe even tell us how you got that name, Bambi.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Huckleberry. Really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk. So Bambi comes from a couple different stories. The first was when I was in college, someone bet that I couldn't tackle a deer, so I did it. The second comes from another college story. Yeah, no, I know. It's a real story. Everyone gets a kick out of that one.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. That made me
Yeah,
sweat.
yeah. So,
No animals were made harmed in the taping of this podcast. I know that. Anyway,
the
tap
uh
the
the,
lip here.
the second part of that story was my wife had a friend in college who was this little small girl, and she would bow hunt. And one day, early morning, she got a deer, but it rolled down a really steep ravine and she couldn't get it out. So she called me, and after she field rested it, I basically rucked it up the side of this really steep hill, because in upstate New York they have pretty big hills. Got it out, got it in my truck, and my wife took a picture of that, and somehow this picture from like 15 years ago popped up online. The guys in the region found it and are like, "Oh, it's Bambi. That's his name now." So that's how the name Bambi came to be.
How they find it before the naming process?
I mean, I'd been doing GoRuck events, and
Okay.
they'd been trying to EH me, and I wasn't really about that at the time because they're like, "Oh, we work out at 5:30 in the morning." I'm like, well, that's kind of silly. But then one of them was finally like, hey, on Saturdays we get tacos and beer after the workout. I'm like, okay, there you go. That's a better selling point. So they were trying to EH me for a while, and I think honestly they're just stalking me. But yeah.
You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. That's my shield log Bluey. He's a captain of the police department. He always does photo ops and that. I would like to make fun of him. He's always on the internet, and he says we stalk him. I'm like, it's on the internet. How do you put something on the worldwide internet and he get mad at me because I saw it? Like, anyway. All right. So the reason Bambi's in here is a couple weeks ago, GoRuck, the good folks over at GoRuck, love them, and Jason McCarthy and that team puts on some pretty amazing events, and maybe they're all going away. I'm not a big and put myself in terrible situations, so I don't do these things. But there's an event called the Selection, and this year was what I hear is the final selection, and Bambi and about 29 other folk participated in that. And you don't win it; you just finish it. And there's years where no one finished it. There's years where one finisher, I believe, a couple times there's been two or three finishers, I think, and one female finisher, I think, over the course of so many odd years. But evidently this year they wanted to make it harder, and I'm just saying things because that's what I read online. Uh, they wanted to make it a little bit harder, and they ended up with two finishers, and Bambi was certainly one of them. Did I say all that correctly? Yeah, clearly you
I'll,
know more
I'll,
than I
I'll
do.
I'll fact check you a little bit there. So,
Good, thank you.
selection's always been hard, right? They're
Yeah.
always saying they're going to make it harder. This wasn't the last year. They're just taking a break. It's coming back in 2028. So, if you're listening to this and you think you want to do it, you should probably start training now, because that's sort of the runway you need. There have been two female finishers in the 13 years they ran the event. So, 27 events, 13 years. 35 finishers, and a published 2% pass rate. So if you like numbers, there's some numbers.
And only 30 people do it.
No, this year 30 people showed up. So,
Okay.
We always have more people that sign up than show up because life
Always.
happens and people get hurt and people have to drop. But in the past, I mean, I've done selection classes that are around 50 people. There have been selection classes that are, 75 people. So 30 is not some magic number where it's capped at that. That's just how many people showed up this year.
Okay. And so you've done one before.
That's right. Yeah, I did 2021, which was in Bellbrook, Ohio, and then I did 2022 in Jacks Beach.
And how did those go?
Well, I came back, so that was going to go as planned, which, is kind of a typical journey. A lot of selection finishers don't finish their first time. A lot need to come back 2, 3. I think there have been finishers that have come back 4 times and finished. So it's not something that everyone can figure out the first time around. It's one of those experiences that you can see videos of it, you can see pictures of it, you can hear people describe it in AARs. Until you actually experience it, I don't think you really truly appreciate how it's so much different from all the other GoRuck events.
So, all right, let's go. Let's go. Let's go on a timeline here real quick. How'd you find out about these kind of things, and what just said, yeah, this is what I need in my life?
So I found out about a GoRuck probably mid 2010s. A friend of mine was trying to get me to do one, and I was living in upstate New York at the time. There weren't really any events around me. I was busy with my career. I was busy doing jujitsu, doing a bunch of other things. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do one day. And then eventually he kept like pestering me. And then come 2019, he's like, let's do this GoRuck Light. And I'm like, okay, we're both in town. We're actually in town for his bachelor party. Let's, in the middle of a bachelor party, show up to a GoRuck Light and do that. Can't be too bad. And I did it. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was kind of cool. Obviously a light, as the name implies, is not anything too serious. I mean, you have to be somewhat, you have to be able to
You
walk.
say that. I'm gonna say it's serious.
Um, but I did that, and I'm like, okay, I might as well keep doing this as something for fun because I can find more GoRuck events in Texas. Moved to Texas probably 2016 from upstate New York, and it's like, okay, there's a bigger rucking community here. This is a hobby I can do in my own time. I'm going to do this as cross training for jujitsu. I started to do a lot of rucking, and then 2020 hit and everything shut down. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm not doing events. I'm not doing jujitsu because the gym's closed, but I can still get up and ruck every day. So that's what I did all throughout 2020. And then as 2020 was wrapping up and events started to come back, I was thinking to myself, okay, I want to do something harder and harder because, what I experienced before was a good challenge, but what's a challenge if you're not going to push yourself? And what's a challenge if you're not going to grow? So things just kind of escalated from there.
How's your? I think you're married and you got kids.
Mhm.
There's a big time commitment to putting forth this much effort. I'm guessing you had a pretty good support network to be able to launch into these things.
Absolutely. Yeah. My wife has been amazing. So being married with two young kids, I have a 3.5-year-old and a 5-month-old. That that is a significant amount of my time every day. And throughout the process, my wife took on more than her fair share of responsibilities so I could train. But she not only did that, she pushed me so that I could become a better athlete and a better person. I remember in 2024, that was the year they did selection in Normandy, which isn't typical. This is for
Yeah.
the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Yeah, so pretty cool event. Like a lot of
Yeah.
history there. I'd love to go to Normandy one day. And I was talking to my wife about it. I'm like, yeah, they're doing selection in Normandy. It's right after or right on Memorial Day weekend.
Mhm.
And she's just like, I'll support you if you want to go, but you're not ready.
Oh,
And which is what I needed to hear,
yeah.
not what I wanted to hear. So essentially, she was the one who pushed me to get in an extra training cycle. So it was 3 years training for this last attempt from, when I failed last in 2022 until 2025. Um, and that's a pretty long runway to reflect on everything that you've done and gives you a lot of opportunities to improve. It also just introduces a lot of uncertainty just because of that duration. For instance, had I been pushed off another year, and training for 2026, I couldn't do selection in 2026 because it's not going to happen. Or,
Yeah.
a host of other things. Like throughout the entire training process, my life as a whole changed too, right? That's, life does not wait for GoRuck Selection. So, um, yeah, having my wife in the corner, pushing me and helping me get better and taking on all the family responsibilities. I don't know how I do it without her.
That's so cool. Did you actually end up going to Normandy? Or did you just nope? I didn't.
I did not. No, no, I did not. I did not. I mean, I was training up on a trajectory where I could be in the position to,
Yeah.
but there was just too much going on in my personal life, with my career. Preparation wise, I would not be in an ideal place. And you can't always wait. Like you can't always be like, oh, I've got this little injury. This isn't a convenient time for me. But that was really not a good position to be in. So I didn't go to Normandy.
Um, now, heading into this one, you already had a failure. I'll call it a failure. Do you consider it a failure?
Yeah, no,
Two
no, no,
failures.
no. Like, here's the thing. Anytime someone goes to selection and they don't finish, it's a failure. You can learn from failure, but that's what it is. Like, there's no point in trying to sugarcoat it. I went twice with every intention of passing, and I did not go just to say like, oh, I can experience selection, because there may be some people who think that way, who may be like, oh, I can see what this is like. I'll see how long I last. People who go into that event that way do not last long. And a lot of people go into the event, though, with a lot of training and a lot of years of preparation, and they fail. And that's what I did twice before. Anyway, didn't mean to cut you off there, but
No, I appreciate it.
call it what it is.
I had a guy in a marathon one time, and the dude had no legs below his knees, and he was a mile 22, and we were watching. We have these timing equipment. We were going to him, and dude reminds me of an F3 dude. Just with that mindset, and he had to pull it. He had to pull it. He had to just get out of there at mile 22, and I had a medal for it. And for me, you bought the medal. I'm going to give it to you. I just need you to go finish that extra 4 miles of doing it. That dude would not take that medal. He was like, I am going to fail. I failed. I need to fail. I want to feel it. If you give me that medal, I'm going to throw it in the river. And he was so determined to fail because he knew he failed, and he wouldn't let me sugarcoat it. Mentally, you've talked a little bit of physical, but mentally, what did that failure do to you in preparation and for that training? And that 2 times, was it mental? Was it physical? Where do we go with this?
In terms of how the mental outcomes of the first two change,
You know how it is. You know how that fight is between your ears. Once you get that, I'm going to fail again. You're scared to fail again. I think.
In some ways, like, I've had other people equate this to the same way as having a physical injury. For instance, you hurt your knee and you rehab it, and then you get back to doing whatever you're doing before that injured it physically. You're scared that you're going to hurt it again to a degree,
Mhm.
and you need to build up confidence, and you need to come up with techniques so that doesn't happen. The same thing is true with your mental focus. If you failed because of not being focused, of having some degree of issues with your mindset, then yes, you run the risk of that happening again. The way that I looked at it was more of just a chance to reevaluate, because I think there's too much stigma around either being mentally tough or weak. I don't think that's the right way to frame it. I think if you look at, and I'll say mental focus or resiliency, focus being that you need to be able to use all of your focus and all of your energy to pay attention to what's going on at the time, and not let negative thoughts or distracting thoughts or extraneous thoughts pull that energy away from what you're trying to do. So that was definitely one thing. The other thing with having mental resiliency is knowing that, like, hey, there are going to be times where I am tested and I am in situations that are unfamiliar, because you can't train for everything, either physically or mentally. So the way that I think about it, you don't want to be a tree that tries to be really strong and resists the wind all the time. Sometimes have to bend and then come back. You sometimes need a little bit of resiliency, or, the concept of being anti-fragile. That's more important than just gritting through things and being like, I'm just going to be strong and tough. And, you tell yourself sometimes, oh, this is really hard, but I'm going to keep going. Oh, this is really hard, but I'm going to keep going. Eventually that turns into, oh, this is really hard. Right. So reframing things in your own mind to acknowledge the fact that you're in a difficult situation, but focusing on the things that you can control, I think, is the most important aspect of this.
So if I heard you correctly, it's not so much as figuring out why. You just go to start being laser focused to the moment at hand. That's your mental training is staying present, staying not getting
It's
distracted.
practice. It's practice. Like, you can't. It's. I'll go back to equating the mental to the physical. You wouldn't go into the gym and put as much weight as you could on a barbell and try to deadlift it if you didn't know how to deadlift. And even if you did know how to deadlift, you'd warm up first. You'd make sure that your technique is crisp. You'd be breaking things down so that every step along the way, you would progress to some type of physical max effort. Same thing on the mental side. Like you don't just, read a bunch of motivational books because one, motivation is fleeting. Motivation is complete crap when it comes to this. You can listen to AARs, you can listen to podcasts like this, you can watch, cheesy YouTube videos and get motivated for a day, a week, a month, whatever it is. But what you need is discipline. But then you need to practice that discipline. You can't just say like, oh, I'm motivated and I really want this. And then I'm going to show up for the first time, practice those techniques during the actual event. So it's just a matter of training and looking at your mindset as something you can train, I think is probably one of the more powerful things that I've learned throughout this process.
That's really cool. I can't wait to dig into that, but I could sit here and talk with you for 3 hours. Um, all right. And so, all right, we went through the 2 years, 3 years of training. You've got the two previous experiences under your belt. You're heading there. You're getting ready to go. You're packing the gear. You're nervous. You excited. You just the whole experience. What day does it start? When do you start traveling? When do you start hitting that direction?
Yeah. So, trying to get my family situated for everything because my wife and kids came with me, as did my father-in-law. And I gotta also, thank my father-in-law for this too, because he wrangled, not only the two grandkids, but also helped keep my wife calm and helped, get them in order to
Did
get
they
down.
watch you throughout the event?
Yeah,
Oh,
they were watching the live stream. And just as a quick aside, I remember my wife was telling me after, she's like, yeah, I was in GoRuck HQ, but people were like shepherding me around so that I wouldn't be in eyesight of you.
I get that.
I'm not sure like if they how well they really covered the end of the event, but the funny thing is, Jason, the founder of GoRuck, he was running the end of the event. He takes us inside GoRuck HQ and is like walking us around because it's a new location for them. And then all of a sudden they start the shark attack at the end of the event, and I'm like inside an office, bear crawling, like pouring sweat on the floor, and like I, I know that there are people around, but I didn't realize until after how many people were just like standing there watching me. It's kind of a bizarre experience. Anyway, sorry to go off on a tangent. You're asking
No,
about
no, I love it.
travel and prep. So the event started Thursday at 1 p.m.
Okay, Thursday,
I
1 p.m.
left early on Tuesday, and then the rest of my family came down on Wednesday. So I did this before in 2022, and it actually worked out quite well. I get on Tuesday, I get in early, I lay out all my gear, I make sure everything is, prepped the way it needs to be, which TSA took all of my MREs on the way down. So after I got through security, I had to like order more MREs to be delivered to my hotel the next day. And I'm like, I
How
really
did
hope
they get
everyone
picked up?
comes through on this. They said, so, I know if you're not as familiar with MREs come with heater elements in them. And
Okay.
you don't need a heater element for selection. You don't need a full MRE for selection. I can talk all about like how to field strip an MRE and pack it down, but essentially I had just the MRE entrees, and they looked at the entrees and they're just like, you're not allowed to have anything that could make a mess on the plane. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to open it. They're like, oh, but we also need to test it. We need to open up each one and test it. I'm just like, I'm not sure if this is an actual rule with TSA or just like, the BS du jour of what the what they're trying to pull here. But I'm like, all right, fine, whatever, throw them out. I'll get more. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
like
At this
it's an
point,
inconvenience at the time, but like that is the smallest thing that I could care about at this point. Like, yeah, take them all away. I don't care. Uh, so I show up to Jack's Beach. I got to replace those. Not a big deal. Family shows up a day later, and I have a whole day of just sitting around decompressing. Um, I don't feel nervous. I don't feel like overly excited. Like I definitely feel excited because you don't have too many opportunities to perform like this. And it's
Mhm.
not that I wanted to like go show off and be like, oh, look what I can do. Um, but I did want to more show myself like, hey, it's been 3 years since you've done something like this, and you are prepared for this. Uh, you just have to prove it to yourself, and you have to perform for yourself. So you know, it was kind of a bizarre experience too, because day to day, I feel like between training and work and family, I'm always really, really busy. I always have a packed full schedule, which I like. But then the couple days leading up, I just have nothing to do. I'm just sitting around my hotel room, like, and I'm trying to keep my mind somewhat distracted, but somewhat focused. Like I'm thinking through, okay, um, how should I approach these particular scenarios? You can only do so much of that. So I'm just sitting around stretching, watching stupid TV, which is just atypical and kind of weird. There's this weird, like, you know, intermediate period before the event where just nothing's happening. And the same is true with other GoRuck events. Like if you ever have done a GoRuck heavy or a GoRuck tough, if you're doing a heavy tough basic, it starts at 6 at night. So if you show up the day before, you're sitting around a hotel room doing nothing for,
Yep.
the whole day. And it's like, I can't nap for the entire day. I'm going to sleep as much as I can because I won't be sleeping in a little bit. I'm going to stretch as much as I can, but I can't, stretching all day is not necessarily beneficial. I don't know, maybe it is. Um, so yeah, I would say there's just a lot of stillness and a lot of downtime leading up to the event, which is a perfect way to go into it.
Cleanse the brain. Before we go into it, I want to shout out GoRuck and the cadre down there and Jason McCarthy. Man, they just put in so many. It seemed they put in so many safety protocols for that event, between hosing you guys down all the time, which I think was probably obnoxious. But also, man, they made you dip your hands in these ice chests and you had to walk around and lift them up. And supposedly, I've worked in some events where heat exhaustion was, but kudos to them for putting on such a solid event, safe event. I think from the outside, it certainly looked like that. You might disagree with it, seeing things on the inside, but you guys
I
look
agree
well taken
100%.
care of.
Yeah. Being on the inside of that, like, and some of those cadre are former special ops medics or special forces medics. They had civilian EMTs volunteering there. Cadre hand, I know, is an active healthcare practitioner, so they were super on top of safety for that event. And I'll tell you too, you don't really care when you're getting hosed down in that type of weather. Actually, really nice.
Jacksonville in this, in the summer, August, whatever, September. Yeah, it doesn't cool down. I'm in Boise, so we just don't sweat. It's a dry air, and we just don't even, if you're sweating, you don't even know you're sweating. That's really nice. That's why we
I,
hug in Idaho a lot. If you never, we hug a lot, and I realize when you get out south, people are nasty. They're just greasy, and you don't touch people. Anyway, all right. So it's Thursday at 1. Let's go. Let's get in there. You lining up and talk us through. And you tell me the highlights. I don't even know what questions to ask.
Yeah. So, without trying to get in like a play by play of the entire event, we line up, we do the usual admin stuff. A couple minor surprises here and there, but like at that point, I'm kind of used to showing up to selections and knowing like, okay, something's going to be different. So a couple minor things that were different and kind of funny. One, they never weighed our rucks the entire event, and I've literally never seen that before. So the first selection I went to, they weighed our ruck in the beginning, and then they actually weighed our ruck again in the middle of the night. And one person somehow missed weight mysteriously in the middle of the night. So they got, sent home rather quickly, because that's quite unusual to be light after progressing through the event. And just for the listeners, it's a bit unusual what GoRuck does for GoRuck Selection, because they'll weigh what they call dry weight for the ruck. So our rucks had to be 45 pounds without food and water. If you show up to any other GoRuck event, they'll just say, hey, you need to bring a 30-pound plate or a 20-pound plate. They don't go through the whole dry weight, weighing rucks in, rigmarole. I wouldn't, abuse that or take advantage of that if you're listening to this by any means, but it's not like the whole, like, we're going to weigh in your rucks. But they didn't for selection, which is really weird. Now, obviously, like, as you start to progress through the event, you have food, you have water, your ruck gets wet and dirty. So it's really like 60 pounds. Your ruck is the whole time, but yeah, never actually weighed. So that was interesting. The other thing is, if you're familiar with how GoRuck Selection is run in the past, they have a whole patch system. And typically you'd start off with a tan patch. You have your roster number on it, and that's how you get identified throughout the event. So they'll say, roster 1-8, come over here, do this, or they'll just use that to refer to you and berate you. Typically, if they know your roster number early on, you're in trouble. And then start to strike your patch, and you'll go from a tan patch to a yellow patch, from a yellow patch to a red patch, from a red patch to back home.
Oh,
This year, they did not start off with tan patches. They just started off with yellow patches. So that was kind of, a little bit of a curveball, because, you're thinking to yourself like, hey, wait, I don't have as many potential strikes before I go home. Um, that was something a little bit different. There's a bunch of other minor things too. I don't want to harp too much on them. Like they gave us shirts with roster numbers, which is different. They had a atypical PT test this year. So GoRuck has been trying to run the baseline functional fitness test for the past 3 years at Selection. I was there the first year they did it, and they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to come up with like pass fail standards, and they've never come up with pass fail standards. So yeah, I mean, like previously they did push-ups and sit-ups, which are pretty straightforward. Like, the Army PFT has done or used to do push-ups and sit-ups, right, for decades. So it's pretty easy to get data on like how many push-ups should you do. With the BFF, no one knows how fast you're supposed to run a 100-pound mile, right? Which, the way they do it, they really make you carry 120 pounds, just some inside knowledge there. But no one knows what those standards are. So they kind of just put those by the wayside. But yeah, this whole time, keep in mind, we're just in a parking lot, and we're doing the PT test. We're doing gear inspection. We're doing some PT, but we're all centralized in this one area. And throughout the entire event, as things progress, the bizarre thing about Selection is you don't really go anywhere. Like we went from that parking lot out to the beach, and then from the beach back to the parking lot. Later on in the event, when we got to the 12-miler, we went 12 miles, 6 out, 6 back at the beach. And then we did the long walk eventually and kind of moved from there. But it's funny to be in this small geography, because people who have done other GoRuck events, it's like, for the most part, I'm going to move around a city. I'm going to see, new sites and stuff. Selection is just like, yeah, I'm in this little, like phone booth of an area, just working out for 48 hours, which is an experience within itself. But yeah, like I wouldn't say there was any particular moment throughout the first day and the first night that was really unexpected. And as we're going throughout this, they're dropping people, and people are getting dropped for medical reasons, and people are withdrawing. But the next day, it was 6 candidates at sunrise. And you kind of don't see over the night where everybody goes. You're just like, oh, I guess we're at 6 people now. And there, I remember, was the first time like they really, really started to dig into people. And soon that 6 became 3 at the 24-hour mark, and then it became 2, and then things got whittled down from there. But I would say the second 24 hours at that point after the break, that was definitely more mental than physical. Like physically, there's only so much you can do. Like there were definitely still moments where they were expecting a lot physically. There were also moments where, they tried to make us do some things that were damn near impossible. I remember at the end of the event, during what they call the shark attack, they asked me to duck walk with that weight vest we were wearing and an 80-pound med ball. And I've duck walked before with an 80-pound sandbag on your shoulders, but you can't really like put an 80-pound med ball on one shoulder. You kind of have to front carry it, and then just your whole balance gets thrown off. So yeah, there's some of that, but like the second 24 hours was all just mental. But yeah, I don't want to harp too much on the play-by-play of what happened. I mean, like you experience the full range of emotions throughout those 48 hours. You definitely reevaluate every decision that you made leading up to that event. But that whole time, I must say, like the one thing that was consistent is I was able to stay focused. Like the physical degrades after a while, and you're just trying to make sure it doesn't fall off a cliff, and you can't walk it, because you get to that point, you're not going to make it. But if you're able to keep forward progress and you're able to stay focused, then there's a good chance that you're going to be able to do what it takes. So yeah, did you have specific questions on what happened during the event, or was
I got
there
a couple.
anything to
Just
dig
a couple.
into before I talk everybody's ear off?
Oh man, please! I think just this. Clearly, that weekend we were all engaged. I know you didn't get to see it online, but man, we were lit up on fire. It's the biggest. Um, Here's some numbers for you. On a Facebook, we average around 2 to 3,000 visitors a weekend. That weekend, we had 85,000 visits to
Dang.
Facebook, the Instagram. It just blew up. Like it was just all synergetic. I think between what GoRuck was doing and a ton of F3 dudes being in there. So you talk as much as you want. I don't think you'll get bored. You talked about the mental, and I love the mental battles more so than anything. There was a moment where there was down to three, 19, 18, and 30, and Jason McCarthy was going around and interviewing you, and he was asking you about your why. And I think he interviewed somebody first, and he went after the family. He's like, "Don't even tell me your family." And man, you try to get in between me and my family, and I instantly flare up. Like I know there's nothing. I know there's no danger. I know but man, I'm just saying that'll set me off. And he interviewed the guy before you, and then he got to you. And I love I like actually like YouTube over the podcast because I like to read people's faces. And sorry about my resting face that I have all the time. Anyway, you were guarded. You were very cautious. I think he thought about things before. Do you remember that moment of?
Yeah,
I think he's trying to antagonize you.
I remember that whole break pretty well. So, leading up to selection, and one thing that I want to share, because I think it's pretty important for anybody thinking about this in 3 years. Selection requires a great deal of focus. And I know I keep using the word focus, but in my preparation leading up to it, I tried to learn as much as I could about previous events, because it used to be, selection was more guarded, more closed doored. Um, Now they've pulled back a little bit on actually like what they've live streamed and what they've broadcasted, which I kind of agree with. Like, leave a little bit of mystique. Like, you don't need to constantly have a camera in your face. You don't need to reveal everything about what happens during the event to the world. Um, but I tried to learn as much as I could from previous events. And I knew that Jason was going to try to use whatever I said at any point of the event against me. Jason in particular, and I don't fault him for this, and he's really good at finding weaknesses in people and making people use their own doubts against them. Because like the cadre are there to push people and to make them quit, but they're really there to pull those loose threads. So I mean, my biggest thing with that interview is I was honestly just getting emotional because I was talking about my family. And it was something that I truly, deeply cared about. And it was the honest reason why I was there. And I was trying to express it in the most composed way I could. But I remember that interview quite well. I remember, I will say too, I remember him giving me that peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and he comes up to me, he's just like, here's your sandwich. Don't eat the sandwich. Well, no one wants to see you eat that while we're
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
yeah. So the funny thing I noticed with the other two candidates, and maybe this is me like gaming the system a little bit too much. I interpreted like, the don't eat the sandwiches, don't eat the sandwich. So I'm like, oh, no one wants to see me eat a PB&J. I'm going to keep eating this MRE because I only have so much time and I need to get calories in me. So part of me was focused on like, hey, how do I give a plausible interview to Jason? How do I express honestly what I'm saying? Because you never want to say something, completely unguarded, like, oh yeah, cadre, my feet are just destroyed right now. That would be a really dumb thing to say. But you do want to have sincerity in it. And then at the same time too, I'm thinking about like, okay, I just need to get calories in me. I need hydration in me. I don't need to waste too much time talking to the camera, but I also can't just be like, yeah, go away, because that's going to be used against me later.
It's gonna be a weird question.
I like weird questions.
So you go into the night, and cadre's cadre, and there's
Mhm.
a relationship between the participants and the cadre. And in the beginning, it's typically they're not easy to like. just not. And by the end of it, you seem to love them. Um, how does that transition? Well, how does that happen?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. One of the interesting things about this event, there weren't too many main cadre on staff. So in the past with selection, I feel like there's around like 8 cadre. And then of course, like as you get down to one person, you don't need 8 cadre there all the time to just harass one person. Maybe at the shark attack at the end, everybody's seen videos of cadre like circled around one person and just yelling and stuff like that. But you can start to work in shifts, and the cadre will rotate in and off shift. So they'll use that against the candidates at times too. Like when the sun comes up, they'll typically change the cadre shift, especially for the first day, because seeing the sun come up, that gives you energy, that gives you optimism, that gives you hope if you want to think about it from an emotional standpoint. So they try to counteract that. One of the interesting things they did with those 4 cadre, 2 of them were cadre who I knew pretty well, and I knew their mannerisms. I knew potentially what they might do and how they might try to dig into me. 2 of them I knew nothing about. So they were complete dark horses to me. They almost used the 2 cadre who fewer participants knew as heels. So, like they were fairly composed and fairly measured, especially the second day. Like you mentioned before, the participant safety. And by the second day, like that was fairly evident that like, hey, we'll still make you guys sprint, do burpees and, clean and toss and go in and out of the water on the beach and low crawl and do all this stuff. But we're also going to like ice you down, with, the cooler and the arms in there. And we're going to give you, those cooling towels. And they gave us like a big bag of ice to lay on. But as
Is that when like torture victims are like kept alive so they can torture you more? Is that kind of the same mentality? Like,
no, I mean, like, I guess that's one way to look at it. I think they just sincerely did not want people to get med dropped because,
yeah. They did a good job.
if you look at, again, just the attrition rate of selection, if you're going to make it to the second day, you have a very good chance of finishing because most people are dropping during the first day. And that's held true throughout all the selections, at least the ones I know about. But then as the sun was going down and it was starting to cool off again and become more hospitable to intense workouts, we knew something was about to happen. And they did the cadre shift change right before the evolution that preceded the long walk. So those were the 2 cadre we didn't know, and they came in super hot. So, you kind of expect, okay, they're going to have like a second welcome party of sorts at some point. That felt like the second welcome party. And then I was like, okay, we got through that. That was, kind of rough from a physical standpoint because bodies is breaking down. And we're like, okay, great. We made it to the long walk. And that we're thinking that dynamic you're talking about, transferring from like you're hating the cadre to there's, some type of a more amicable relationship. I mean, one way to look at it, in jest, obviously, is more like Stockholm syndrome than a true friendship. Well, I'm obviously after the event, all is well. So I'm like, okay, great. We're about to go for the long walk. I'm just going to walk for 10 hours straight. I'm going to hallucinate a bunch. And then I'm going to wake up walking and the sun will be up and nothing is going to stop me at this point. And nothing was going to stop me. But the cadre at that point were like, all right, you are going to sprint over these bridges and race each other. And, I don't like to make excuses, but I remember I was talking to my coach a couple weeks beforehand. I'm like, Joe, there are literally no hills to do hill sprints in the greater Houston area. I have a wooden box in my garage and I have a parking garage that I can go to downtown, but there's no such thing as a hill in Houston. And he's like, yeah, do what you can. And I'm sprinting over these bridges that have probably not a whole lot of elevation. And I'm just like, oh crap, I should have done hill sprints. But yeah, we did not have a nice, relaxing, like hallucination filled long walk. We had to sprint and the cadres were, rotating on and off at that point. Like one was riding in an SUV and then the other was tailing right behind us. And one of the cadres is like, if you don't keep my pace, I'm gonna drop you guys right now. And we're both like, obviously me and 30 are not communicating verbally, because that's not allowed, but there is a shared understanding. So I remember, at one point during the long walk, we're on a standard sidewalk. We're just walking side by side to box out the cadre so he can't pass us. Um, yeah, yeah. But once the sun started to come up at the long walk and those two cadre rotated off shift, then I really think, we started to, I could tell to some degree the cadre were starting to root for us more and more. Because at that point they're just like, yeah, we can thrash these guys a whole lot physically. We can berate them if we want, but it's not going to stop them. And of course they do that right at the end, but like, what's the point in doing that for the rest of the long walk or the rest of the morning evolutions? Like, you just let the physical work do what it needs to do, and either you persevere or you don't at that point. So yeah, that relationship with the cadre developed eventually, but really didn't fully materialize until the event is over. That's sort of what I expected.
You mentioned the sunrise a couple times. Of the 4 or 5 events I've done overnight, the birds start singing an hour before the sun comes up, and man, when those birds start singing, that it's like man, it gives me so much energy because you just hear them, and they just like came through the long night, and they know it's coming, and I love when the birds start singing. I don't know if that happened in Jacksonville,
Well,
but
we were on the beach for the first night before sunrise, so you don't quite get the same indication.
it's down to the waves.
Yeah, and then we were over the intercoastal bridges for the second, so I didn't quite hear that either. But like when you started to see daylight, I remember there's this dude riding a road bike around in circles towards the end of the long walk. And that's the other thing. They were making us go in circles around these bridges. So we were just looping around these bridges, like, I don't even know how many times. And they told us after they were just killing time. But I saw this dude working out. I'm like, all right, this dude probably isn't that crazy. And I don't know exactly what time I thought it was. I didn't know exactly when sunrise was, but I'm like, okay, we're getting close to it. But they also tried to gaslight us at some point too, because one of the cadre called the other cadre and he's just like, hey, yeah, I'll meet you at 3:45. And I knew for a fact it was much later than 3:45. But he said it like loudly twice. And the first time I'm like, I think he's gaslighting us. And the second time I'm just like, oh yeah, you're not that slick.
I was like the banks that have the time on the outside.
Yeah.
You mentioned the relationship between the participants, even though you can't talk. You mentioned how you guys started shared understanding, and I guess is it happen when like there's two things, and when you're going to race each other, do you know like, hey man, let's not fight at this out. Let's just kind of run so it looks like we're you just kind of taking care of each other. Or you
No, we were still competing. There are definitely so here's the tricky thing about selection. There's the phrase that everybody knows, it pays to be a winner.
Mhm.
And there are times where it does pay to be a winner, and there are times it doesn't. Some of the times you can infer, other times you don't exactly know. And then other times it's very clear if the cadre are like, hey, pays to be a winner, sprint here to the end of the parking lot. And it definitely doesn't pay to be a loser. And whoever's the loser, is off doing some extra work and the winners are drinking water. That time is quite clear. Another time where it doesn't really pay to be a winner, is something like the 12 miler, right? You want to be front of the pack. But you don't want to go out there and run a 2-hour 12 miler. Like, can a lot of the top candidates do that? Yeah. Can I do that? Yeah. Is there any point? No. You're just like, you're not going to win any brownie points by scoring higher on certain parts of the fitness test, especially. And then even some evolutions. Like, I remember there was one evolution where we just rucked in a big circle on the beach for an hour, and Cadre Hand was randomly pulling people out and making them like bear crawl and smoke them. Cause it started off like, hey, we're going to do this ruck in a big triangle. It's triangle, not a circle. Cause he had a couple chem lights set up, and for every lap, whoever's in last place is just going to get smoked. And we did that for a little bit. So it's like, okay, we're sprinting. And then eventually he's like, all right, I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to pull people, but if you're not performing, I'm going to pull you. So we did that for an hour, and he told us we were doing it for an hour. For something like that, you don't want to sprint the whole time,
Mhm.
but you want to be at the front of the pack. So there's a fine line, and it's not like cadet candidates are cooperating actively per se, but I think like the smarter ones, and by smart I mean the people who are
Experience.
prepared,
Yeah.
prepared and experienced, because they're like, you show up to some of these events, selection especially, and you look at someone, you're like, damn, that dude looks like he's in really good shape, and then all of a sudden he's gone. And that's not to like knock on the other candidates, but it's just the truth. And
Mhm.
part of it is, I think, like, people are not prepared for that particular stimulus. It doesn't mean they're not good athletes otherwise. So yeah, like it's just being perceptive. I'll go back to the word focus. It's about being focused and understanding, like, hey, this evolution, I definitely shouldn't be last. I should be towards the front of the pack, but it does not win me anything to be first place by a mile or even first place at all.
I love that you keep saying focus, and I'm keep asking if you get unfocused. I know you developed a bond with the other participants. You ever get frustrated with the other participants? It usually falls under the category of, man, you're not pulling your weight, or is it
The
such an
selection,
individual event? Yeah.
selection's an individual event. I don't care if the other participants are doing. I mean, like, that's no, like, honestly, like, that's kind of the antithetical thing about selection as a whole, because GoRuck's all about drilling into people's heads, like, hey, the team is the most important thing. It's not about you. It's not about you. You need to support the team. Um, which I think people misinterpret sometimes, because
Mhm.
in order to be a good team player, you need to be a strong individual. You can't just like show up and
Oh,
be like, yeah, I'll probably get through this. Sort of like that is a terrible attitude to show up to a team event with. You got to show up to those events and you got to be like, hey, I'm gonna be the best version of myself for my team. Um, but in terms of like, I hate this other participant, I would say frustration and anger are probably one of the most dangerous emotions to have, because they will distract you and they will pull energy away from where you need it. So no, I mean, like, there's definitely times where other participants will get angry, especially if you're doing like log PT or something. And someone's like, oh, so and so isn't doing this, or I'm doing the most, but like, the log PT is meant to induce that. It's not a straight log. Part of the log was heavier than the rest. The cadre knew this. Part of the log was, chock full of splinters. So someone's going to get the short end of the stick, but eventually throughout the entire event, everybody's going to be in that shitty situation. So it's so unfair. It's fair in some ways.
when folks fail, do they take responsibility, or do they come with like the cadre's fault, or I didn't know, or
It
something?
depends. It depends.
What's the healthy
Again, like,
approach?
I, I can only speak to myself personally. I can't really speak to other candidates. Not to be callous, but like, that's on them, and I'm not trying to dig into that too much. Like, obviously there are situations where candidates will blame the facts and circumstances, and then but a lot of times from what I've seen, they take responsibility for it, because again, like, it's an individual event. That means it's all on you.
And I'm going to lean into so many life lessons in these things that one of the things we say as a runner is, you will never win the race unless it's a mile race. You'll never win the race in the first mile, but you can sure as hell lose it in the first mile.
Yep.
It is so easy to do. So he's kind of translating those lessons over life. So getting in the back. All right. So now you're done with the event. You got your beer. Jason likes you again, and now you're one of it's in this club that you get all these discounts or something. I don't know. But how do you take an experience like this where you endure so much and you stay focused and you stay positive, and then you go home, and then a challenge presents itself to you, or you watch other people go through challenges, or do your tolerances change? Are you looking for that? How do you change as an individual once you leave something like this that very few people can do?
Yeah. So just a quick qualifier before I answer that.
I like
The,
this.
the, the discounts and the perks, if you want to call it, of finishing selection, um, do not justify or motivate any of the finishers. They are circumstantial. And if you want to think about things from a pure financial and time perspective, I have invested far more time and far more effort and far more money to train for this event than I will ever make up in a lifetime of discounted GoRuck gear and free events. Not going to say I won't get discounted gear, but yeah, there's no break even, or there's no even digging that particular depth, in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
in terms of applying the lessons that I learned through finishing, I would say the lessons and what I learned and how I changed over the years wasn't from finishing. It was from being prepared and training for it, because it wasn't as if, Thursday at 12:59, I'm one person, and then Saturday at 1:01 or whenever it indexed. I don't even know what time it indexed. So if someone knows that, I'd be curious, just, for a data point. Um, it's not like, Saturday afternoon, I'm a brand new person and I approach challenges differently. So in some ways, like, I have an expanded toolbox to deal with the challenges in life. But in other ways, like, I'm still doing things in life with my career, athletically. I'm still trying to, grow relationships with my family. And all of those things present challenges. So it's not as if, like, all of a sudden I have an easy button for adversity. Like, I still find hard things to do every day. I'm not just, sitting on the couch kicking back and, oh, all of a sudden I finished selection. So now everything seems easy, or I don't feel a need to continue to push myself. So it's kind of funny, because I feel like, because the change happened over a 5-year period, you don't notice the change as much. But I guess thinking about it in retrospect, like, yeah, some things never become comfortable, but growth is always uncomfortable. Um, but even though those challenges are still uncomfortable in life, I am able to deal with them more efficiently. Um, it doesn't mean the perception of them changes at all. It just means I'm able to get to a end state quicker or with less stress, if that makes it all any sense.
Not really. I love it
Life
though.
life can get easier after selection. Let me put it that. Um, yeah, it does not, finishing an endurance event, because that's all it is at the end of the day. It just happens to be a really hard endurance event that only 2% of people pass. Finishing that does not solve all your problems in life.
And I say it doesn't make sense simply because I believe it's such a personal journey. And it's so unique to each individual once you go through something to that extent. Hey, just climb Mount Kilimanjaro in a wheelchair. I believe he's a changed person when he came back. Now, uh, Mervin just talked about this kid with cerebral palsy who led this high school to championships. That kid's journey is unique. And so when I say each of us go through that unique journey, doesn't make sense. And I love talking about it, because my journey, I've come to find to embrace these events because it's almost therapy for me. It puts you in such an enormous load, mentally more so than physically, that I almost just need that crush. My back hurts. So if I go to the gym and I work it out, it feels better. It's if I
Mhm.
sit around and I lay around and I get lazy and sore, I find out I have more, I hurt more. If I stay active and I stay, my body responds better. So my mental just needs that same kind of crush, that same, and I stay busy and I stay active,
Yeah.
through all things. But once you get to that, something that intense, what's next for you? What's going to top selection? Because I know you're not going, you ain't going to stop. Your wife knows that. I know that. Uh, what's next for you?
In terms of athletics in particular, or
No, just crushing yourself. Just getting to that, being you.
yeah, well, I'll speak to athletics first, since
All right.
that's more pertinent to, what's a direct translation after doing this. Um, I only intended to take like a year and a half off from jiu-jitsu. So 5 years later, I want to go back, because it's kind of silly to stop doing jiu-jitsu. Well, I'll leave it at that. It's at any belt level, it's silly to stop doing jiu-jitsu. It's in particularly quite silly to do it when stop doing it when you're a brown belt. Um, not that I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to get my black belt one day and then I can tone it back. But I just want to get back into grappling, because that's fun, and that's a challenge within itself. Equal parts thinking to physicality, which I enjoy. Um, I would enjoy some running too. I mean, I've only ever run one marathon in my whole life, So I
I've
didn't.
only run one marathon. Who says that? I've only run one.
Well, no, like I know a lot of guys in my region who are all about like, oh, I'm running
Yeah.
this marathon and this half marathon and this ultra. So like, I'd like to actually be able to go into a marathon with a full training camp just to be able to hit certain benchmarks that I would like to see myself do. Probably not what runners would consider good, but whatever. That seems like a good personal goal. Ultras seem like they're on the horizon for me too. That just seems like something with the length and duration, similar to selection, but obviously not the same in terms of the feedback from having someone like the cadre there. I don't know of too many ultras where you have the staff yelling at you along the way, trying to get you to quit. Um, I still am very much interested in other GoRuck events. At some point in the future, I've thought about team assessment too. They're running team assessment in April, which is way too soon for me to do. And then there's other like ruck based events like the long ruck, which is a last man standing sort of rucking event, which would be cool to do. Um, I'd like to do Rucking World Championship or Best Rucker, whatever they call it now. So kind of sticking in similar modalities, but just finding different outlets for competition. And then outside of rucking, like I want to spend more time with my family.
Yeah.
I want to try to, you know, I want my kids especially to learn um, the things that I think are important. And really at the end of the day, one of the reasons why I did selection was I want them to understand that everything worth doing in life is hard. And if you do hard things, eventually you're going to fail. And you can let failure destroy you, or you can let it teach you. And if you let it teach you and you grow, you can do really amazing things in your life. Um, so I don't really care what they do. I mean, obviously they're too young to be thinking about such concepts, but as they grow up, I want them to have the tool set to be able to do hard things. And I want to be able to be there and support them. So that's part of what's next. And then finally, I just want to be able to give back. I can't help everybody. Obviously, again, this is just an endurance event that I did. Training for it does help shape your perspective on life and help you with certain things. And if other packs want to, take on a similar journey or something, not even similar in terms of the physical aspect of it, but similar in terms of the mental aspect, and I can somehow help, I'd love to be able to help. Um, so that's what's next. I mean, honestly, this is part of the challenge for me right now because I spent the past 5 years knowing exactly what I was doing. And the challenge was refining, okay, why am I doing this? Like, I don't quite understand my own mind. So that was a 5 year journey to better understand my own mindset. And then part of it was just like, okay, how do I do this? I know where I want to be. How do I build the steps along the way? So rediscovering my what is my new challenge to some degree. So I figured, this is a little bit of a transitional period for me to discover and figure out what's next. But in the interim, um, still living the habits and lifestyle that will enable me to do good things in the future.
A couple things I want to highlight. I work with a lot of kids, and I think the ages 5 through 10 are so impressionable, where kids don't know failure yet. Yes, this young man's. How old are you?
I'm 35.
35. They just know a world that's what 35-year-olds do. They don't. They just do that. Like they
Yeah.
never even thought they couldn't do it. Like I don't know how we get into their minds and say, hey, we're gonna let you do something, and yeah, you're probably gonna fail. But they don't. They when they 5 to 10 is such a shapeable year of like they don't even know failure yet. So just one of my son ran his first 5K at age 2, and his first solo 5K at age 4. And a lot of people were mad at me. The people in the line, they're like, "This kid, it was an airport, so they just ran this back when you could do these things. He just ran a mile and a half that one way, and then turned around and back. It is a couple hundred people, and he was in there, and he finished in 40 minutes. But the kid is just now he's 15, and I cannot keep up with him. Um, and I just love what you're doing and showing your kids. And I think as fathers, that's the most important thing is you show them how badass we can be. And we don't make excuses. And if we do fail, we own it. And they make kids growing up under that can just do just about anything. How does it, well, let me back up. 35. has it started in your brain yet? Like I know I'm 50, and so in my brain I'm thinking, do I really want to train for a marathon? Again, and I run five, but it's been a minute, and I kind of want to do it again. But at some point, is it your brain feels the same? I still feel like I do when I was 18, I think, but I'm definitely a lot more experienced. But what point do you start passing what you've learned on to other people and developing those mechanisms and those systems? Um, I feel like I feel like this may be. I just had a conversation where, as you get older, our youth need more mentors, and F3 is a great space for 35 to 50-year-olds. It's not real prevalent in the 18 to 35-year-old, the younger kids, and honestly, man, I wish they were in here with us and we were talking and we had an opportunity to mentor our younger generation. Is that crept into your brain at all? You mentioned helping other people, but
Yeah, I
just
mean, I'm not trying to go out of my way to do it. Like I am trying to talk to people as I find them, but I'm not trying to like proactively recruit people to
yeah,
mentor.
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't. I
'Cause I
wouldn't.
feel like that's an organic process, and that's a process that doesn't really scale proportional
Okay.
to. I mean, like I know people who run coaching businesses. I know people who would describe themselves through their profession as a mentor. Um, that's not exactly what I do from a professional standpoint. So, it's more of just like, hey, I see somebody, I think I can help. I happen to be in the right position to do so. I'll reach out and do it. I've thought about it, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, the funny thing is I didn't start F3 until I think I was 30, 29 or 30. And I probably would have benefited from it earlier because, the
How did you
stresses of
know?
life in your 20s as you're trying to, grow professionally and start a family and all that. Like you need to lean on other men for support. I think the challenge with trying to do some of this through F3, and this is just me speaking candidly, is what brings people into F3 is the fitness, right?
Hmm.
And if you're open to all men, which is a great thing, it's really hard to create a culture where you're catering to your top 10% and your bottom 10%. Like you have to attack that middle, right? Which is just the reality of it. So
Yep.
like, how do you tell that, college athlete who's a year out of school and struggling to find balance in their newfound career that they should come out to F3 and run around with a bunch of, old guys, right? It's tough. And I include myself in the old guy camp, right?
35-year-old old guy. Oh my God, I'm gonna slap you.
Um,
uh,
yeah, no, it, that is an interesting problem to try to approach.
one of the things floating around SLT is talk about your why, and my why is community. I don't go to church, and that's a whole nother story for another time. But I truly believe the future is better than the one I'm in now. I just believe our youth is the path. I believe they will have a lot more answers than we do, and I would man I just want to tell you, I'd love for you to be like a state senator or a legislator, and someone like you in that because you have I still respect the positions, but man, the people up in those positions are getting. I can't. It's hard to like. It's hard to like. So I really want some solid, good family guys that put themselves through things and understand, and just good people to go. So I'm gonna encourage you to go be a politician. Dang it. I said it. I said it. I'm going to plant that seed. Let's see what happens. Uh,
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a particular career path or aspiration that I would ever have.
well, wait till you get my age and you see who's running the show up here. And you're just like, man, I'd say, dang it. We could put some better people up there. I think. I don't know. We'll probably cut this out because I don't want the comments down below.
Yeah, no, I got it. It's one of those things like I have faith in the ideals of our system, and I don't have probably similar to you. I don't have faith in the individuals. So, but then like you have conversations like this, and you meet good people every day. You meet capable people every day. But what like I don't understand who would want to be a politician who has honest motivations. And I know they exist. I'm not saying they don't. Like I know in local government they exist, but how do you be in that, you know, career for so long and A, not go insane and B, not be corrupted? I don't know. Maybe I'm just
I'm
being
right there with you.
cynical on that. Maybe you should cut that out or leave it
Yeah,
in. It's my honest opinion.
there's a lot of good dudes in F3, and that's when Dark Helmet asked me, he's like, "You want to help out?" And I was like, "Man, this is I don't know any other organization like this that exists, a grassroots movement that just blew up across the world, and it somehow along the way it collected the best dudes. What? How'd that happen? And some other guys too. You know who you are, but uh, but no, it really is the best of dudes in this organization, and so all right, I had you on here for an hour and 10 minutes, and I get yelled at if I go too long. But they said you should be anyway. Go play some music. Is there one question I always like to ask? Is there any question I didn't ask that you were kind of thinking, "All right, he's going to ask this. I wish I would ask. I'm going to flex on this. This is going to be the best answer I got," and got all prepared for this. And he didn't even ask me that question. Any of those questions floating around?
No, honestly, I just, I spoke what was on my mind. I didn't really script anything coming into this. I didn't have any canned answers. If anybody else is curious about what I went through, just ask me. I'm not about to give out my cell phone number or anything crazy like that.
Oh, I have it. You want it? You want it? I got it. I think Cambo gave it to me. Somebody, I don't know how I got it.
But, no, seriously, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to talk if you think I can help you. But honestly,
Dude,
at the end of the day, I know some people are, super excited to have an F3 PAX as a selection finisher. Myself, I'm just humbled by the organization as a whole. I don't feel any differently. I don't think of myself as some exceptional PAX. I honestly wished I was more involved with F3. So I don't know. Maybe this entire experience will help me.
Lord, you
on
about to
that
get a phone
side.
call. Dark, yeah, you bet. There's gonna be a race from the SLT members to put you on the team.
Oh, geez. I do not have the bandwidth to do that. Do not add another 30-minute meeting to my calendar, even if it's once a quarter.
I can't. I got to call Dark Hill in a minute. I think it's all the time. Good times. I'm going to disagree with you. I think you're a phenomenal PAX, amazing PAX, and I appreciate you. And happy to have you on here again and talking. And if some other guys want to talk to you too, and share that story of what F3 does. I will say that GoRuck Selection event. I don't know any other organization that had 5 or 6 PAX or 5 or 6 participants in the crowd, and F3 had we had a number of them. Did you get to meet? Did they all like, yeah, I'm F3 too? Or I could keep up.
I mean, I trained a bit with Gretzky, who's out of Fort Bend. I think he's out of Fort Bend. He's out of one of the other Houston regions.
East San Antonio.
Yeah, East San Antonio. Yeah.
So that's Katy, Texas for you.
He called me April-ish time frame and asked for some advice. So I pointed him over to another F3 PAX. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Joe Baker and Joe Baker Fitness. So Joe did all my programming. So there's my shout out to Joe. There's the one thing I will recommend to other people. If you're trying to do something big, whatever big is for you, and it involves some form of rucking, obstacle course racing, ultra marathons, Joe is really good with functional fitness, and it helps to have a coach. Even if you think you know everything, it helps to have a coach. But yeah, no, I knew Gretzky going into that, and then I knew of other guys, and then I realized afterwards, I'm like, oh dang, there's a lot of F3 guys in this. So that was cool to see, and I'm just glad the event as a whole brought a positive note to F3 Nation. Because like you mentioned, great organization of men, and some others too. But I feel like F3 as a whole sometimes can be misinterpreted, and sometimes
Can't anything.
Middle of the night in a GoRuck event when you have a bunch of dudes in F3 shirts who are kind of acting silly, doesn't always leave the best impression upon people. So, one,
but neither does a flock of
leave a good impression on people, try to be good stewards of F3, and 2, just realize that you represent much more than your AO when you're out there. But yeah, no, I'm happy for what this did for F3.
I love it. And speaking of, I've asked for, I get a couple of Was Now guys coming in and talk about the impact of F3 on their lives, and I'm looking for a couple more to put on here and just highlight, really just update the website. We got some older stories up there. We just need some fresh ones. So if you're one of those guys and going through a journey, please give a shout out to my boy Cruiser and his PAX. I'm going to run the Marine Corps Marathon on Saturday if it goes on, because the federal shutdown, it'll be just fine. We'll talk about it like it's not going to happen. It'll be just fine. But Cruiser, have a good run. Bambi will be there next year with you and running. And Bambi, thank you so much for coming on here. Let me get out of here and hit the stop button, but stay on and let's let this record up.
I'm your Huckleberry.
If I can change, then you can change.